Welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. A sea of red on Dalal Street. Sensex down over 2,000 points. Nifty down over 600 points. More than 15 lakh crore rupees in market cap wiped out in a single day. Japan's Nikkei tumbles over 12%, marking the biggest crash in 37 years. Shares plunge across Asia and Europe as fears of a US recession rock markets worldwide. Crude oil prices decline to 8-month lows. Cryptocurrencies see a rapid sell-off. Gold sees safe haven buying along with US treasuries. The global sell-off pushes the Indian rupee to a record low. 10-year bond yields drop to a 26-month even as India's money market remains largely stable compared to its peers. Bangladesh stares at a political vacuum as Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigns, leaves the country in a military chopper. Protesters storm the Prime Minister's official residence, torch her office in Dhaka. The army chief addresses citizens in a TV broadcast, says a caretaker government will be formed. Hezbollah launches a drone attack on northern Israel as tensions rise in the region. 40 Palestinians killed in Gaza in the last 24 hours after Israeli attacks. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken tells G7 an attack by Iran is imminent. Indigo set to launch business class travel on the Delhi-Mumbai route from mid-November with fares starting at 18,000 rupees. The airline hopes to add 7 new international destinations by this fiscal. Aster DM Healthcare is eyeing Care Hospital. Sources say talks in advanced stage with private equity player Blackstone, which owns over 72% stake in Care Hospitals. Independent directors at state-run Power Finance Corporation raise concerns over a loan to the Shapoorji Pallonji Group. Sources say directors question the loan to an infra business, which is not a core business for PFC. The Supreme Court takes suo motu cognizance of safety norms in coaching centres in Delhi, cites the recent tragic deaths of 3 UPSC aspirants at a coaching institute due to flooding, says coaching centres have become death chambers, issues notices to the Delhi government and the union government on safety measures prescribed. American Noah Lyles wins the gold in a dramatic photo finish at the men's 100 meters dash in Paris. Pips Jamaica's Kishan Thompson by 0.005 of a second. All athletes finished below the 10 seconds mark in what was the closest race ever. Right, a manic Monday on Dalal Street and stock markets worldwide. Sharp losses on the Sensex and Nifty as fears of a US recession, Fed rate cut timeline and other geopolitical factors spooked the investors. Prashant Nair is here with more on the market action. Over to you.
Well, it's a red day, and it's not just here but around the world as well. So I'm just going to do what I'm going to do is put out 4 reasons why the market actually got spooked. It all, of course, began on Friday evening with the US monthly jobs report, which was much lower than what was expected. And that essentially sparked recession fears. That is very different from even the mood a week ago when people were of the opinion that the US economy will engineer a very soft, orchestrated kind of a slowdown, which will not too bad, but at the same time, it will allow the Fed to cut rates as well. All that is out of the window now, and markets are themselves anticipating that the economy perhaps will see a bit of an uncontrolled slowdown, hard landing if you want to use that word, and the Fed now seemingly is behind the curve, which means that it needs to cut now and not later this year. As a result of which, money markets are now pricing in not a 25 basis point cut in September, but a 50 basis point cut in September. And cumulatively for the year, they're expecting a 125 basis point rate cut through 2024, the remainder of 2024. The other one, of course, is this entire yen carry trade business. Investors borrowing sort of cheap yen in Japan. Interest rates have been low there for the last 25 years. And then investing in higher yielding stocks, bonds, all asset classes, foreign exchange around the world. A lot of that money has gone to all places around the world. Now, what has changed that is that the yen has actually gone from 162 to 142 in 1 month flat. I mean, this is not some piddly small frontier market, but with yen and Japan we are talking about. As a result of which, currency calculations when you're actually doing this carry trade goes haywire, and that is a result, and as a result of which a lot of forced unwinding is taking place. That is essentially what carry trade unwind is no one actually knows how large this is, how much money is at stake on this carry trade, specifically with regards to yen going, this money going to other parts of the world, but it's expected to be sizable. Next, of course, is Nvidia, which has, of course, been the outsized driver for US market returns. And news came in early that Nvidia is reportedly delaying its next AI chip by at least 3 months. It's called Blackwell, and it's not a coincidence that the Taiwanese market, which has got so much semiconductor weightage and the entire value chain, supply chain, was amongst the worst performers in Asia today. And also tellingly, NASDAQ has been underperforming the S&P 500, even though, the big tech earnings are all behind us. And that's thanks to, of course, fears around Nvidia. Geopolitics, I don't think, was the real dominating driver, but at the margin, keep that at the back of your head as you look ahead, because at the political news website, Axios reported that, an attack by Iran and Hezbollah against Israel could start as early as Monday. So a cocktail of events is always coming together. Markets, of course, taking a big gash today. Back to you.
India, I think it would be less a growth scare. People have been talking about valuations for Indian equities for a very long time. Nonetheless, the market kept going up, and if anything, recently compared to many other global markets, it still performed relatively well. But I think now that question is going to become much more pertinent to investors when they see a much less supportive global environment for risk. Markets with high valuations are going to be one of the first things that they look at.
I think as far as the US is concerned, what we read and what we probably still share as a view, and probably is a continuation of what we, in a way, expecting that, we will probably try and see some correction as far as the inflation dynamics out there are concerned, and some bit of slowing of growth as well. But in the meanwhile, I think what is happening is quite unexpected lines. In a way, I would say that because there was this expectation that in the second half of the year, we will probably try and finally see some possibility of rate cuts emerging.
The market was on this optimistic high that we were having this perfect soft landing. Everything was hunky-dory. Inflation is defeated. Fed is cutting rates. And the market went bananas over the last several weeks, months. And what has just come back is some recognition, not a certainty, but some recognition that the probability of a recession has gone up. I don't think it was an overreaction. I think it was overdue. I think there was too much optimism. And the risk of a recession is real.
Right, those were some market experts and their outlook on what happened in the markets today. Hormaz Fatakia is here with the big movers in trade today.
Usually in a session like this, when there is a sell-off across the board, you may wonder that a dip would get bought into, as has been the trend. But sadly, that was not the case in today's session. And the benchmark indices, both the Sensex and the Nifty, saw their biggest sell-off since the 4th of June. And as a result of which, 15 lakh crore worth of investor wealth was eroded after today's sell-off. And the sell-off was across the board, with 46 Nifty stocks ending in the red, with just a select FMCG stocks and some pharma names bucking the trend in today's trading session. And the sell-off, as I mentioned, was across the board. Metals, media, realty, auto, PSU banks, all of these indices saw drops of anywhere between up to 4% or even more, with metals and real estate being the biggest sectoral laggards in today's trading session. The key point also to watch out for today was the India Wix, and at one point of time the Wix was up almost 52%, and that was the biggest single day jump that it had seen since August of 2015, eventually ending 42% higher and above the mark of 20. That might be a cause of concern as well. There were, of course, global facing stocks that took a bit of a beating in today's session. Tata Motors was one of them, 7.5% lower, the top Nifty loser, and the other one was Samvardhana Motherson as well. That stock ended 10% lower, of course, because of the relations to the Japanese markets as well. 600 stocks, almost 600, 580 to be precise, on the BSE ended on a lower circuit in today's trading session. And of course, as I mentioned, there were select FMCG and pharma names that bucked the trend. Marico was one, Glenmark Life was the other. Devyani International, after its earnings today, ended in the positive, so that was a good sign. And lastly, on the commodities front, the crude oil prices have fallen to a lowest level in 6 months, and of course copper prices are at a 4-month low. There were specific sectors that bore the brunt of the sell-off today. Real estate was one of them. Almost every index constituent ending lower. The top losers there being Suntech Realty, Brigade Enterprises, Godrej Properties, all of them seeing losses of between 5.5% to 6.5%. Railway PSUs are bearing the brunt as well. IRFC, IRCON, RVNL down at least 25% now from the peaks that they made last month. Defense PSUs, a similar story playing out there as well. Mazgaon Dock, Cochin Shipyard, Garden Reach, all of them ending lower, almost 5% or more. And metals having a meltdown in today's session. The metals index also was down nearly 5%, 6.5% lower for SAIL. Similar for NALCO and Jindal Stainless, 7.5% lower in today's session. So all in all, red across the screen, and there was no sign of any sort of support at lower levels.
Right, thank you, Hormaz, for that. Let's shift our focus to the big international update. We are tracking this political turmoil in Bangladesh. After facing weeks of anti-government protests, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has fled the country. The army chief of Bangladesh made the announcement while promising to put an end to what he called anarchy. In a live broadcast, Chief of Army Staff Zaman said a caretaker government would be formed. Visuals show thousands of protesters storming the palace of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who has fled her residence for a quote-unquote safer place. Bangladesh's Channel 24 has broadcast visuals of a huge crowd celebrating outside Sheikh Hasina's residence. In what comes as a strong display of dissatisfaction against the Hasina regime, a statue of her late father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, colloquially referred to as the founder of Bangladesh, was vandalized. The army chief also said that troops have been ordered not to shoot at the protesters. This comes after a bloody Sunday when at least 98 protesters died and several injured in clashes. The death toll is around 300 since the demonstrations began a month back over a High Court ruling in favor of reinstating 30% quota in government jobs for descendants of freedom fighters. Hasina's refusal to meet the students led to the protests turning violent. The government had to cut off all connectivity through broadband or internet for 11 days, which is yet to be restored fully. There's heavy police and army presence on the streets of Dhaka. All right, for more on this, I'm joined by senior journalist Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhry and Bangladesh's former Foreign Secretary Shamsher M. Chaudhry on the broadcast to get us the latest and what's happening in Bangladesh. Let's start first with Salahuddin Chaudhry. Mr. Chaudhry, thank you for making time and speaking to us. For the benefit of our viewers, do we have clarity as to where Sheikh Hasina is headed? What is the latest on that front?
Thank you very much. Actually, for the last several days, particularly from the July 17th, this country was witnessing so much of terrorist activities and vandalism, arson attacks and uncertainties. And there was curfew, there was internet outage, and so on. And after the things came to a little bit of normalcy when army came on the street, following the imposition of curfew for a few days. But again, things started going worse for the last 3 days. And this student movement protest, which began with the demand to reform the quota, it thematically, for the last 3 days, it turned into a one-point movement demanding resignation of Sheikh Hasina. Now, this morning, actually, although there was indefinite curfew imposed from last evening throughout the country, so from this morning we have been seeing thousands of people entering Dhaka city and heading towards Shahbag, very near to the Dhaka University. So we were almost anticipating that people are not abiding by the curfew. Things started getting a dramatic change when there was a declaration on the local television channels that the Army Chief General Zaman will be addressing the nation. It was initially set for 2 p.m., but then it took place at 4:30, very brief. And during this briefing, the Army Chief said Sheikh Hasina has resigned and she has left the country, and they are going to form an interim government, and he called upon people to refrain from terrorist activities, destruction, vandalism, because they said such things cannot bring anything good to the nation. And prior to press briefing, the army chief met political parties for discussion. There was a representative from BNP, there was a representative from Jamaat Islami and Jatiya Party and others. Our League did not participate in the dialogue. So now, instead of the vandalism and terrorism, what we are witnessing, now we are seeing that people are chanting slogans and demonstrate, they are celebrating. But at the same time, there is currently looting going on at the residence of the Prime Minister.
Okay, looting going on at the residence of Sheikh Hasina's residence. Please stay on with us. Bangladesh's former Foreign Secretary Shamsher M. Chaudhry is also with us. So thank you for staying with us. Everybody has seen those visuals of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's statue being vandalized. This is unprecedented. For the benefit of our viewers, could you explain to us what does the new army regime in Bangladesh mean for the country and for the rest of the world?
Thank you. First of all, I don't even for a moment support the idea of destroying the statue of the father of the nation. But I guess in a mob situation like this, things are not always logical. Everybody was waiting with great anticipation what the army chief was going to say. And he came on the air, as the previous speaker said, around 4:30, something like that. And more like 4 o'clock. And it was not a written speech. He read out, he just spoke to the media present there. What he said that the Prime Minister has resigned, and he didn't specify she has left the country. Yes, she has resigned. And the political and civil society people who have been, who are meeting with the army chief, and maybe some senior officers of the army also, at the army headquarters, have come to an agreement that they will go to the president to form an interim government. The very word interim means that whatever government is formed, it has to be within the terms of the country's constitution, otherwise it will be constitutional vacuum. And number two, that it will be an interim government.
Right.
I don't know what is the length of the interim government will be, which also implies that there will be call for fresh elections. Now, the interesting thing that I find is the group of people who were called to meet the army chief. Among them, the BNP leaders, he did not name them, but there was the two leaders from Jatiya Party. I spoke to one of them just a while ago, and they are on their way to the president's house to work out an interim arrangement that is covered by the constitution. Now, the fact that no emergency has been declared makes it very clear that the constitution is very much in force.
Okay.
Whatever solution comes to, it has to be within the constitution. My own reading with limited knowledge of constitutional law is that the parliament will remain. Prime Minister from another party will be appointed for a 3-month period, and then they'll go for a fresh election. So that will ensure the continuity of the constitution, but not the constitution of the present parliament.
Okay. So quickly in 2 seconds.
Public resentment has been growing since the last election, which was seriously flawed. The one before that, which was even more blatantly flawed. And but this time it outburst in the form of the quota reform issue. But then it became a much broader public movement where people coming up from all sides, and made worse by police firing and killing unarmed students. Video footage of police firing on unarmed students had really fueled the fire enormously. There was a young student who was supplying water to the protesters. He has been shot. A helicopter gun shot fired from a helicopter, apparently a police helicopter. A little child was killed when the bullet hit his head on the 6th floor of their apartment, of their building. So all these scenes of yesterday, close to 100 people were killed. Then the Awami League government's decision to unleash their student wing on the protesters, which led to merciless attacks on the protesters by the Chhatra League, backed by the police. And the Chhatra League people were wearing helmets and all kinds of things. All this combined made an already bad situation far worse. And then it came to there was a 9-point demand was made by the civil society, which then eventually, when the killings continued, was turned into a 1-point, the resignation of the Prime Minister. It actually happened today, and she has left the country.
Yeah. So my follow-up question was: is there any clarity on where Sheikh Hasina is headed? Any clarity, any confirmation on that front?
I'm afraid I don't have any clarification. It is all speculation, rumors. Some say she's in Agartala. Some say she's somewhere in West Bengal. Some say she has left with her sister. We don't know who else has accompanied her. But I don't think she will try to find a safe place in Bangladesh, given the present anger of the mob, especially the youth. It is the younger generation who came under attack. They are jobless. Now, the fact that the representative of the Jamaat, which is not a registered political party, and which has very recently been banned by the government through an executive order, at the meeting with the army chief is something that we cannot ignore. This party is not registered in the Election Commission. This party is a banned political party. In spite of all that, the army chief perhaps felt compelled to include the Jamaat in the arrangements that are being worked out now. There are civil society members who are progressive, Asif Nazrul, maybe Hossein Zillur Rahman, the Jatiya Party representative Parishani Sultan Mahmood. I don't know who from the BNP was, but the army chief also made it clear there was nobody from the Awami League at the meeting.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary and Salahuddin Chaudhary, for making time and speaking to CNBC on these developments that are unfolding in the country of Bangladesh. We will keep following up on these updates. For now, it's time for a short break. But coming up next, Indigo set to launch business class travel on the Delhi-Mumbai route from mid-November with fares starting at 18,000 rupees. More details when we return. Welcome back. Indigo is marking its business class foray after 18 years of operations. Its first flight with business class seats will be launched mid-November on the Delhi to Mumbai route. The airline plans to introduce Indigo Stretch on 12 routes. The fares will start from 18,000 rupees. Danish Anand finds out more about the product.
India's largest airline in terms of fleet size and market share, Indigo, is all set to grow further. On the occasions of 18 years of flying operations, the airline announced the launch of a tailor-made business product that will connect Delhi to all metro routes.
We start with the metro-to-metro routes, the nation's busiest and business routes. We start with 12 seats on board of the aircraft. We feel that's an adequate number at this point in time. But clearly down the line, when the 350 will be there, when we start to fly longer. So one should never look to any decision or any proposition in isolation. You should look at what's the total picture and the total plan. I think what we're here today doing are unveiling parts of those building blocks of that total plan.
As Indigo now eyes of becoming an airline with a unique business model, the airline also launched its loyalty program called Blue Chip.
It's going to be an affordable business class, and you see the name itself, Indigo Stretch, is basically saying it all. So we are introducing a product which we feel is tailor-made for the Indian market. It will be affordable. It will have all the things you need. It will have power. It will have a different service level. It will have a different catering level. And it's going to be totally tailor-made.
With Indigo all set to induct the A321 XLR aircraft from 2025 and the A350-900 wide-body aircraft from 2027, the airline has ambitious international plans, and by the end of the current financial year, the total number of international destinations that Indigo will fly to will be 40, and as more and more aircraft are inducted, the number of international destinations will also go up. With video journalist Naresh Saini, this is Danish Anand for CNBC TV18.
And that's a wrap on this edition of